There's an 82% certainty that your multi-million dollar company is actually worth $1 million less than it should be. While you're celebrating revenue growth, hidden inefficiency is quietly gutting your exit value. I'm Doug C. Brown, and with Jeff Shavitz today, we're going to stop that leak. Are you the CEO that's leaving seven figures on the table, or are you the one that's fixing it? Let's dive in right now. This is the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, Doug, looking forward to it.
So, folks, Jeff and I, we get along really great. Jeff, want to jump right into this EBITDA. I mean, this is your whole business model, helping people create more EBITDA. Why don't you tell people what you do?
Yeah, so I've been in the credit card processing space about 30 years. Started out on Wall Street at Lehman Brothers, which is no longer a company. So it's funny to tell your children you work for a bank that's no longer here. I did that for a couple of years, investment banking, deferred business school, wanted to be an entrepreneur, never heard of credit card processing as an industry, was introduced to it, started a one-person company and grew it to about 500 people. And so I've been in the space about 30 years now and happy to share any insights and talk about EBITDA, which is a big part of our business model.
Yeah, and so let's talk about EBITDA because the a lot of people like they're always trying to grow top line revenue, and that's not bad, but sometimes we can grow revenue and not grow profitably, right?
Right, right.
Um, and what I love about your service is you guys look at a huge expense for most companies, and you're able to spot all of the misalignment, I would say, and the overages that companies are paying. And folks, if you don't know, if you're taking credit cards, you are probably paying more than you need to. And I'm saying this from experience. When we had our telecommunications auditing and consulting company, we would routinely find 24, 25% on that just inherent in the bad billing and inherent in the way that the invoices were structured. People just didn't know. It was kind of hidden. Is that similar in the credit card business?
Yeah, so what you mentioned is as a small business owner, which I have been my entire career, we're always, working sell, 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 look
Yeah.
at the sign, always selling. But to run a bit at the end of the day, it's about profitability. And if you have less sales but more profit and greater EBITDA, you have a more valuable company. So I've always said to senior management, whether you're a one-person company or we have Fortune 50 companies as clients, does a CEO, CFO truly have the time to review every expense? The answer is no. And even if they did have the time, because our expertise is credit card processing, we're a very unique business model. And it's the analogy I would give is like, do you understand how to read your cell phone bill? Most people would say no. So it's analogous to reading a credit card processing bill. They're incredibly complex. And after 30 years of doing this, I still get confused reading some of them. So I say this respectfully, if I can't read it, a CFO can't read it. So we've come into organizations but to your point about the 20, our average savings is 22% without even switching. We can literally identify, it's a word called interchange, is that depending on what kind of credit card, if I own a restaurant, I can't dictate what credit card the customers give me. But whether I give my Amex card, my JetBlue Airlines card, my Visa debit, all these different credit cards have different fees associated with them. That's what dictates the end all rate. So if you're paying, let's just use 3%, and I could lower it to 2%, that's going to increase your EBITDA. And I think in all different expense line items, you need to once a year cross over all your different expense categories to make your companies more efficient.
Yeah, and that's what we focus on our side because what a lot of people don't realize is uh the change from year to year. Like there's a lot of creep going on, scope creep in the actual billing of what's going on, or bad billing, just quite frankly. And so if we can, and it's not just about expense reduction, folks, you could do this on the sales side, right? I mean, if we can improve certain ratios like speed to close time, that allows your people to prospect more. We can get more clients in for the same. If we can improve the close rate, our lead cost is still fixed, but now our close rates higher, so we're bringing in more top line revenue, but we're also improving the EBITDA as we go along. And EBITDA is a metric that a lot of people, I don't think, Jeff, they don't take, it's not sexy enough in business school for most people, right? When they look at it. Um, do you find that most people focus on revenue only and they're
Yeah.
just sitting on this gold mine of profit, really, when it comes down to it, or this gold mine underneath
Yeah,
that's
I
untapped?
do. I find that I'm in a business organization called YPO. Maybe some of your followers, Young Presidents Organization.
Yep.
And we've talked to many of the CEOs and senior leadership. For whatever reason, it's always about revenue, 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 and or putting out fires. So their day is, hey, I come into work, let's say at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm putting out fires and being completely reactive. We work with a lot of, so one way I want to give back to the world is to work with a lot of nonprofits. And I don't want to make any money. I just want to do it as a pure service. I don't take any fee for this. But what I find with many nonprofits, and sort of like in the opening, they always want to increase their donors, raise another thousand
Right.
dollars. But I say to these nonprofit leadership teams, if we could save you 30% on your expense side, it's like bringing in another $1 million. So I find that the complexion of the type A CEO is sales, sales, sales,
Yeah.
and they need that alter brain to help look on the expense side. And,
Yeah.
and,
And
and not just credit card expense, it could be any expense.
yeah, I mean, let's say that nonprofit has, I don't know, let's just make a number up, 500 people that are supporting that nonprofit. Um, they don't look at things, and most businesses don't. They don't look at things like, okay, I got this 500 person asset. I can reduce either the expense side on that side, if
Hmm.
you will, and we can improve money, time, energy, efficiency, effectiveness. We can also then take those 500 people and extend relationships through those 500 people, and our marketing cost drops down significantly. There's all kinds of ways of doing this, folks. How many times is that group of 500 buying from you
Hmm.
in a year, right? If we can double that rate, we are now getting a much more profitable sale. And
The other issue I find with senior leadership, especially in the credit card world, is when you write a physical check or give a physical credit card to ding yourself for $100,
yeah,
in the credit card space, the CFOs never do write that check. The credit card processing companies just ACH the money out. And now they've stopped sending out monthly statements. They're all done through the internet portals. It's amazing to me how many CFOs and CEOs I speak to that have not seen their credit card statement in years. And I'll say to them respectfully, if you haven't seen it, how do you know what you're paying?
right.
And they don't know what they're paying. So we've come in and saved some Fortune 500 companies over 40%, because what the credit card companies do, and this is what's very, and I used to be the educational author of the whole payment space, and I used to lobby for this for the merchants, the small business, the small medium-sized business owner. They, let's say you sign up at 2%, which is a very fair number to pay. The credit card companies can send out a monthly notice, which no one ever reads, to bump up the credit card fees. It will say that due to increasing inflation, CPS retail ERF will go up by 10 basis points. It means nothing to the average person. We have seen within a year's period that 2% became 3.5%.
Ooh,
We see merchants that are paying over 5%, because what happens is page one of the credit card bill can still say 2%. In my world, it's all about these hidden fees. And it's like a shell game and this is what we do at our expense company, is that we literally, our technology, we've done about close to $350 million now in savings. So we are the largest company in the world that audits credit card bills. And we look at the bills, we find these hidden fees, we fix it for the CFO, CEO, and then we take a piece of the savings, is how we make our money. And then our team becomes the external CFO, looking at only at credit cards. But it's becoming really difficult, and it's not fair, because if there's been a lot of private equity and venture capital into the payments industry. So if a company like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, there's companies, Fiserv, you may have heard of. If they have
Mhm.
a million to 10 million customers, which they do, and they increase their price by $50 a month, it means nothing to the average merchant, $50. But for their stock price, if they can bring in another five, $10 million a month in credit card fees, it's enormous. And that's the game that these credit card companies are playing right now. They keep on adding in these hidden fees that cannot be picked up by a small to mid-sized business owner.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We found the same thing in the telecommunication space and other areas of expense management, and even in the sales space, right? I mean, there's a lot of monthly recurring revenue, like software products or CRM that's not being utilized or something like that, and all of this, folks, erodes your margins. And so it's kind of like as what you're saying, Jeff, is as they start raising these hidden fees, if you will,
Yeah,
or
that's the
right,
word. That's the word. That's what we
right.
say.
It's kind of like you're on a treadmill trying to walk uphill financially, and you're getting tired and your legs hurt and your breathing's getting heavy and all that stuff. And like I just flew into London Airport. Now they're charging $20 to get into the airport, and it covers you for X amount of years.
Right.
But
Right.
if we think just what you said on how many people come through Heathrow, London, or anywhere in London
Right.
on a daily basis at $20 a person,
Right. Right.
that is a huge amount of money. And and
Well, to your point, when you go to a hotel, a nice, even a mid-size, a medium hotel, and they charge you $20 for the Wi-Fi,
yeah,
it's terrible. But people are, or even on American Airlines, and this, they charge for Wi-Fi
yeah,
still. You
yeah,
go to your ATM, you don't go to your bank, you go to another bank. They charge you $3 to use their ATM. It's almost like the whole Amazon thing or the Apple Pay of $1 here or there. It does add up. And that's why, whether it's in your, former industry or my industry, if we can help reduce that fee by 20, 30%, increase the EBITDA, know that Big Brother is watching. Because we've actually analyzed this across our portfolio. We look at about 12,000 accounts a month for we have about 12,000 recurring clients. We sometimes will stop the checking on purpose. We see the rates go back up. They know when Big Brother is looking,
yep.
and they know when they're not looking. And it's really a sad commentary on business right now that you're trying to cheat. I always tell our banks that we work with, we want you to make profit. You deserve to make profit. Just don't take advantage of our merchants. And that's why the business works, because coming from a payments background, we want the processors to make money, make a fair amount, but not to gouge our customers.
So, folks, I want you to get this analogy, what's happening, right? Let's say that you're gaining 1 pound a month. It's not a lot. It's 1 pound, right? But in a year, you're 12 pounds heavier. How do you feel? Right? Now, for some of you, maybe you need the extra weight, but for most people, they don't. And if you did this over a 2 or 3 year period, you're literally 36 pounds heavier. Your breathing's going to be compromised. Your health is going to be compromised in all different ways. This is what's happening in your business. And it was as you speaking, Jeff, I wrote down Google this year raised my rates.
Mhm.
Microsoft this year raised my rates. Intuit with my QuickBooks Online, they raised rates. By the way, Intuit, that was a jerk move from my perspective because the way you frame this is now you're giving me more benefits, which I don't even use.
Right.
Right? And if you look across the board, all these like little fees are starting to go up. Like credit card. So I'm here in Europe at this moment. Well, credit card, even on the exchange, like
Mhm.
so you tap your USA card, and all of a sudden it comes up Euro or US. And I can clearly see the difference between Europe and US. So you've got bank exchange rate fees, all these other things. If you tap US, you're paying of another 15%,
Right.
right? And what I want people to understand is depending on what banks it goes through and things like that, certainly what I've seen over here, your credit card fee is quite heavy when I look at from here to Europe back to the United States on the exchange rates too.
And we've looked at some industries, if you accept credit cards, that after labor and equipment, credit card fees are a very significant expense.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you're using credit cards. I mean, if you're not, you're not. But if you're a restaurant, if you're, I mean, there are some industries now, there's no more cash anymore between Zelle, Venmo, credit card processing. Um, who carries cash? No one writes checks anymore. And now there's a whole, we didn't discuss this, Doug, the past couple of weeks, but now I could literally wipe out credit card fees to zero for every one of your followers, every one of your people listening. And you're going to say, oh my God, why wouldn't you do that? The credit card companies now allow the merchant to pass on the credit card fee to the consumer.
yep,
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that it's out there now. So we have lots of, I mean, to me, if my doctor, who I love, raises his rates by 3%, I'm not going to leave him. I love my doctor. So
right.
if that transaction is $100 and I'm paying $3 more, I'm going to continue to go. He's now going to save 3%, which is a lot of money. So the credit card companies and Visa, MasterCard, Amex, all these different debit companies, they're looking at different ways that they can, one, help the merchant. There's a term called interchange optimization, which means that the credit card industry, we're not regulated. So if I want to charge Doug Brown 5%, I'm allowed to. It's not right, but I'm allowed to. So there's industries that are called high risk. It could be the adult industry, cannabis, hemp, people with bad credit. We're allowed to charge higher rates because there's more risk involved. However, the term interchange optimization means that every month, if you're taking in 1,000 transactions, our technology is going to make sure and optimize that it hits the lowest possible interchange. Credit card salespeople don't even understand how to do this because they're not trained properly.
Yep.
And that's the bad part of our industry is that, a lot of people just like, they need to make an extra dollar this month so they become a credit card salesperson. The good ones are great, and there's a lot of bad ones. And that's in every industry, I think.
Yeah, even in the when we've done training type things, we've noticed the credit cards come through sometimes, and it's like, oh, this one was 2%, this one was 2.5, this one was 3.5, this one was 3.8. You know, and so when I called, they were like, oh yeah, that's kind of a high risk card,
Hmm.
right? I'm like,
Right, right. What does that mean?
yeah, how am I supposed to know that as the
That.
person taking the card? Like you ask the person, listen, is your card high risk? You know, it's like,
No, you're right. That's the problem. And so when we go, our technology scans every transaction,
yeah,
literally every transaction. And then we go back to the bank and say, hey, bank, Doug Brown's credit card hit 3.5%. He's an upstanding citizen. There's no chargebacks. And then we get a credit back to 2%. And then we save $50 or whatever the number is to that customer.
yeah, but the thing is it $50 a day to
Oh yeah,
some,
no, it's real. I mean, my average, I save many companies over, it depends on the size, but over $1 million a year. Like they think they have these great rates, and then literally it's like magic. 80 grand a month literally comes off the top. And it just shows you how profitable and how disgusting it is that the credit card companies are taking advantage. And it happens more, Doug, at the small to mid-size. Because the larger organizations like, I've looked at every Fortune 25 company. Typically, they're set up correctly because they're so big.
right,
The Walmarts, the Costco's, those types of organizations. But if you're doing $1 million to $10 million a year, let's say you're a small business owner, you don't have time to understand this stuff. And you've never heard, what happens also is you've heard of Visa, MasterCard, but you go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo, they're not the true processor.
right.
There's a middleman called Fiserv and WorldPay and companies you never heard of. So there's markup upon a markup upon a markup. And at the end of the day, you as the business owner wants to get the most competitive rate because we're a commodity. But to your point, if you're the high risk business, card holder, you can't figure this out. So that's the game of the business, and it's I think it's very distasteful. I wrote a book which I never sent you called "Size Doesn't Matter." why small business is big business. And it talks about being a small business owner is how difficult and how many hats you and I have to wear to keep our businesses going. And I find an expense reduction. Yes, you can hire a great CFO or outsource to a great CFO. I don't think they have the true skill set in some of these areas you and I are talking about. Telephone expense, credit card expense, shipping expense. I mean, there's some big expense categories.
Yeah, and it's not that they're not smart people. It's just that it's one of those things that it's easy to overlook this because it's just becomes a cost of doing business, so to speak.
That's right.
And that's how it kind of gets justified off. It's like I remember one time I looked at a company, Jeff, and they just did a new contract with AT&T, and they were a large direct mail company.
Hmm.
And back then, direct mail companies had big phone bills.
Hmm.
And so I looked at it and I had just done a renegotiation on AT&T the week earlier. So when I looked at the bill, it was the same program that the client that I had, but there was a very big difference between the cost of what my client was paying and these people. And I looked through the bill and I just, in like 12 minutes, I looked up to them and I said, "You're overspending by $500,000 a year."
Hmm. Right.
And they're like, "Nah, we negotiated really hard."
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm like, "Hold on." And I scratched out the name of the client bill that I had with me from the previous one. And I held it up and I said, "This is the exact same program. Can you see the numbers?" And they looked at it like, "Oh my gosh."
Mhm.
And so, fortunately, they had a 60-day clause in the agreement that they could go back and
Yeah.
show. But the point being is, this was a very experienced company with a telecommunications department of 5 people,
Right. Right.
right? So if they can overlook this because it's not stupidity, it's ignorance from not knowing what's
Yeah.
behind the curtain, so to speak.
That's right. That's right. You're right.
Now, folks, just think about this. If you have $1 million EBITDA, and let's say you can get 5x for that, right? That's $5 million. What if you take your EBITDA up by 20%,
That's our number. That's our number.
right?
That's our
So
number.
now we're at 1.2. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but let's say you can only get that same five multiple. So if we go 1.2, I'm just doing this now, just making
Another
sure that,
million dollars. Yeah, another $1 million.
well, that's 6 million versus 5 million. Geez.
So to your point, Doug, a huge part of, I'm not sure of the complexion of your followers, a huge part of our business is private equity. We work with many of the largest private equity firms in the country to get to their portfolio and operating companies to
Yep.
do just that exercise you just did. We increase their EBITDA by 20%. The multiple is 5 or 10 or whatever the multiple is. We just increased their value by X. We also do a lot of pre-negotiation. So if your company, one of your followers is looking to sell their company, we know the new buyer is going to automatically increase their profitability by, in that case, $1 million.
Yeah.
And so that's actually the biggest thing I work on personally is working with private equity firms because of what you just did. And that's where the value proposition comes in.
Yeah, and folks, if you look on the other side of this, if you're putting in raising your cash flow up at the same time, your EBITDA is getting multiplied. Then so let's say now instead of let's just say there was a easy number $5 million company, they were doing $1 million in EBITDA. If you're able to take that same up to, let's make the numbers easy, 10,
Mhm.
and the numbers stay the same,
Yeah.
right? I mean, PE companies must be like overjoyed, right? Because we're going like
It's
yeah,
a very, and what I would say to your listeners, we're not perfect. We don't have 100% success. About 82% of clients I look at, I can help them. Because there's times that, I talk to, like, we're not very good with fast food franchisees like Subways, McDonald's, Burger Kings.
yeah.
So if I get those statements, many times I cannot help them. So about 18% of the times I will report back to the customer saying, "Hey, thank you so much for sharing your information. We actually cannot help you. You're in great shape." The other 80 plus percent, we're going to find 20 to 25%, if not greater savings without switching. That's the key to what I do now. Even though I'm a processor and I can switch merchants, in our auditing business, they stay with their current processor. We help negotiate, optimize, find the hidden fees, and then it's just literally it's like magic. They get a 20% increase in their EBITDA.
I just want to make sure I heard the number right. Did you say 82%?
80% of the clients I look at, I can help them. 18% I cannot. Either their rates are set up correctly, they're tied into a technology integrated point of sale system that will help not negotiate with us. But the other, 80% on average, we can help.
That's insane. Like
Yeah.
wonderful, beautiful that you can help
Yeah,
them.
it's a big number. It's a big number. There's a couple of industries we're not great with, like franchisees. Fast food franchisees we're not great with.
Right.
But no. So if any of your listeners would ever wanted to reach out, I'd love to help. And I always feel good. We talked before the getting on here. We just like helping people. You and I, if I can help a business owner, terrific. If I can, I'm gonna be very candid. My whole world has been entrepreneurship. That's what I enjoy doing. And if we can help, it's good for all of us.
So Jeff, speaking of that, how can they get a hold of you or the company or,
Yeah. So my direct number is 201 245 4545 201 245 4545. And my email is jshavitz, SHAVITZ, at Merchant Advocate. And Merchant
well,
Advocate is the name of the company. We've done about $350 million in savings that we can quantify for our clients. And it's a win-win. We just take a piece of the savings. There's no fee for us. There's no upfront fee. There's nothing. If we help, terrific. If we don't help, you pay us nothing.
well, folks, I think it's worth a shot. Being from that type of business industry, I can tell you there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for you and credit card processing, credit cards in general. I know from our credit cards alone, it's like it varied all over the place. And until I started digging into it, I was just clueless. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're dumping tens of thousands of dollars a year out the door. And so those of you who are taking a lot of credit cards, I'll put all this in the show notes for you. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast today. And I have a feeling some people are pulling over to the side of the road going, oh, and I have some others probably grinning ear to ear thinking, hey, this is the beginning of a new year. Why don't we widen out our EBITDA the easy way instead of having to go out and sell way more to try to make that happen? Let's look at that in maybe both ends of the spectrum.
And I'm going to start my diet today because of you, because I can't gain 12 pounds this year. Thank you for the motivational speech.
You're so welcome.
All
Thanks
righty.
again.
Thank you.
All right, look, revenue important, but at a loss also important. Sometimes revenue is just a vanity metric if your efficiency is rotting from the inside. If you're one of those 82% of those CEOs maybe losing that seven figures in valuation to hidden fees and scope creep, then you're working too hard for the business that's worth too little. Let's fix that. Don't let your company milestone become that $1 million mistake. If you want to see exactly where that leak is headed, reach out to me at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com and let's do an assessment on that process. And if you'd like to reach out and connect with Jeff Shavitz at Merchant Advocate, do so. The information's right here in the show notes for you. Get the audit, folks. Stop the bleed. This is Doug C. Brown. Now go protect your value. And as always, go out and sell a lot of stuff and play win-win. Until next time, to your success.